Welcome to an introduction to tactical shooting. So this video is going to be an introduction for those just getting into tactical shooting. And what do I mean by tactical shooting? Well, that is you're done standing still, you're done shooting off a bench, and you actually want to learn how to use your pistol and your rifle in a dynamic way. So this video is going to be an introduction. The industry is growing, gun culture is growing, and more firearms are being sold year after year. So I think it's important to make a video just going over the basics and what to do, what to get started, safety, drills, and all that sort of stuff. My recommendations for your first rifle and pistol, ammunition, and much, much more. So with that, welcome and let's get into it. So with that said, whether you are brand new to shooting or you are very experienced, watch the video anyway. It's always good to have a reminder of just going back to those basics. For me personally, I always love practicing those foundational, fundamental shooting skills. So I know that many of you already know this, but I've got to go over it. So what are 4 firearm safety rules? Number 1, keep your finger safe and off the trigger. Number 2, ensure that your weapon is always pointed in a safe direction and not at anything you do not intend to destroy. Number 3, always treat a firearm as if it were loaded. And number 4, always know your target and what is beyond. So you're brand new to shooting, you want to get into tactical shooting, or you've been shooting for a long time and you want to get the most out of your semi-automatic rifle or pistol. So how do you get started? Well, the first thing is going to be make sure that you understand your firearm safety that we just went over and you're good at handling your weapon. It's very tempting to see video games, movies, and people online being very fast and high speed, but I urge you, slow down and take a minute. You've got to be able to know how to handle these firearms in a safe manner, even subconsciously. This is when videoing yourself can be very important. Go home and just manipulate that weapon. Again, make sure it's clear, abide by all your firearm safety rules when doing that. But handle your firearm, video yourself handling the firearm, and see if you always put the weapon on safe. See if you're manipulating the weapon when you're going into a weird position, like into a reload. Is your finger grabbing around the trigger? You know, making sure that weapon's on safe. So by doing that, you're going to be able to learn yourself. And once you know that you can handle that firearm safely, then we can move into the more dynamic stuff. But to start off, just make sure that you're handling that firearm with care, safely, and competence. So with that, let's go over some basic things that you'll need in terms of equipment outside of the firearms in order to get into tactical shooting. Now, because you're already shooting, you might already have these, but I'm going to go over them very quickly. First one's going to be a good pair of eye protection. I'm a big fan of just clear eye protection. It lets you see color through optics and the target well. These ESS are clear also, and then you can swap them out with dark lenses. But a good pair of eye protection is a must. If you wear glasses, you can get ballistic rated glasses, but I do recommend getting something that can actually take an impact of something like a shell casing or, God forbid, metal shrapnel. So after eye protection is going to be ear protection. So there's really 2 types. You have in-ear and over-the-ear, and then brand new electronic hearing. We're not going to focus on that, but I'm a big fan, just the basic in-ear protection. A lot of people put these in wrong though, which is why they think they don't work. So the way that you're meant to insert these is you grab the piece of ear protection, you then roll it in your fingers like so. And what it's going to do is it's going to make the end of it nice and compressed. See how I'm compressing it? And then what you're going to do is put it into your ear, right into the channel. And then just where your earlobe ends, you're going to hold it. You're not pushing into your ear, all you're doing is holding it in place, and you're actually going to hear it expand. And what that's doing is it's molding to your ear, and then it is fully seated into your ear. What a lot of people do is this. They just put them in there, see how it sticks out, and that's going to fall out and not provide ear protection, whereas you want it nice and flush, actually inside your ear channel. Next up is going to be your over-the-ear protection. So with this, there's many types. You got the expensive type like Opcores and Peltors, but because this is a beginner video, I recommend these Impact Sports, and then I recommend upgrading to the gel cups. They mold to your ear. The foam that it comes with is very stiff. These just do a lot better job at molding to your head. So some people like to run both, But if you do, again, just make sure that they're fully around your ear, and don't worry about your stock well lifting these up. That's natural. That's why a lot of guys will run both in ear and over the ear at the same time. But to get started, the in-ear is a must, and then this is a bonus, and again, if you want to preserve your hearing, is highly recommended. So let's talk about ammunition. A lot of people will focus on ammunition a lot. There's a ton of debate, but don't get distracted. We're out here training, we're having fun, we're brand new, so all we're going to do is get out whatever caliber it is. I recommend 5.56 for rifle and 9mm for pistol. 115 grain is fine, any brass case. I like to stay away from steel casing because it destroys the inside of your firearms. We always want softer metals to be inside our firearms. We don't want those harder metals like steel. For our 5.56, again, brass case M193, which is 55 grain training ammo. Don't overthink it, guys. But what's important is whatever you zero your rifle with is kind of what you want to train with. So if you're zeroing your rifle, make sure you stick with the same ammunition. So after that, let's talk about magazines. So for your magazines, there are really two main types, and that's going to be your manufacturer brand and then your non-brand. Now, one of the most popular non-brand is PMag, and by non-brand, I mean not made by the manufacturer of your firearm. So the company Magpul makes what's called the PMag, and those are fully polymer, the P standing for polymer, magazines. They're usually the most cheapest and most plentiful. For your rifles like your AR-15s, the PMags, Gen 2s and Gen 3s are absolutely fantastic. And then for your pistols, like the Glock, which is what I recommend, they're okay. I actually recommend the actual Glock magazines, and the reason for that is they actually have steel. You can see the silver steel there, whereas the PMag does not. So this is all polymer. This actually has a steel insert, and that just equals more reliability and better feeding. Now, big price difference between the two, so I recommend getting about 3 of these Glock mags, which if you purchase a Glock brand new, you'll get. And then, 3 more of the PMags, but again, expect these. They may crack, they may break over time. They're not going to last as long as your steel pistol ones. So moving on to our rifle magazines. So here's 3 main types. We've got our PMags, and then we have our metal magazines. So for your AR, for your rifle, what I recommend is you get 4 to 6 plastic PMags. That's because they're cheap. What you're going to see is they have windows and non-window, and that's up to you. That's just preference. I like a mix of the two, but the key with these mags is when you store them, you're going to want to have this follower on here, and what that is that it presses down on that last round, and it takes pressure off of these lips. Because they're polymer and they're not metal, as we discussed with the pistol magazines, that's going to ensure longevity of the magazine. Constant pressure of the bullet on these lips can actually split the seam of the mag. So Magpul will supply with this top cover. What this does is it hooks around, it pushes down that last round, and it takes pressure off of those lips. So after that, we've got our metal magazines. This is why I recommend having some metal ones. For that reason is, yes, we've got our cheap polymer magazines, but these metal ones, they don't need to worry. I'm a big fan of these. These are Duramags, and we don't have to worry about that follower problem because these are spot welded and they're a lot more tough. You can get aluminium or steel, it's up to you. Steel ones are heavy, like the H&Ks are very expensive, almost $100. But the Duramags, I feel, are a great substitute. So I'll usually run 6 to 8 PMags and then backed up by 2 of these Duramags. For that reason, then I always know that I have some reliability. The other great thing is if the PMag breaks, it's broken. With these, we can actually use multi-tools. We can kind of bend them back into shape. So if one of these gets crushed, we can kind of get ourselves back on the range and fix that problem. So let's talk about other magazines. If you decided to not get an AR and go something like an AK-47, just be aware that those platforms are a lot more fussy with magazines, and you've got to try a mix. So here we have a Bulgarian ex-military one. We have a KUSA polymer and a Magpul magazine. Each AK is going to be different, each one's going to be fussy, which is why I recommend the AR-15 platform, because you can pretty much feed it any magazine, or just stick to Magpuls and know that those mags will work in a variety of AR-15 rifles, whereas with your AKs, there are hours of debates on what's the best magazine and what to use and what not to use. So just, let's keep it simple. Something else that you might want to invest in is going to be one of these. So these are snap caps. This is training ammunition, and this is great for dry fire and some drills that we're going to do. But all these are just basically dummy rounds, and you won't break your firing pins or you know, put pressure onto your bolt systems and the internals of your firearm when you're doing dry fire or drills. So you don't need them. They're kind of expensive, but they're always good to pick up a couple, and it'll really help, you know, improve your shooting capabilities and skills. So just other little tools you can get. Okay, so let's get to the bit everyone's been waiting for, and that is the rifle or firearm. This one is clear. So this is what I recommend for your first setup, your first AR-15. It is very, very simple. What this is a Polymer State Armory lower receiver. Nothing standard, just a military lower, very cheap. And then the upper receiver is an Aero Precision. And the reason I recommend not cheaping out on the upper is because what you're paying for is the barrel and the bolt. I'm a big believer in, if it touches the bullet, don't cheap out. So your barrel, your bolt, and your magazines. Those are the things that touch the round, therefore you shouldn't cheap out. So a Aero Precision or BCM upper, a higher or mid-tier quality upper, but the lower can be a PSA, and that's going to save you some money. You know, if you go with a Aero or BCM lower, it can charge anywhere from $300 to $600. And in my opinion, if it's your first rifle, there's just no need for that. So go the PSA lower and then a Aero upper. The handguard, it doesn't matter. This is a Magpul polymer one. I think it does a great job. And then I'm a big fan of the A2 front sight. That way, if you do a red dot or irons, you're getting both worlds. A lot of modern rifles will not have the foresight. So, you know, be aware of that, but I'm a big fan of having it. I'm a fan of 16-inch 1-in-7 twist with a mid-length gas system. That's going to mean that the recoil is a little bit softer, but oftentimes these rifles, unless they're customized, they're overgassed anyway. So those carbine length rifles can be very, very aggressive. So with that, accessories you're going to buy is a quick detach sling mount. That's going to allow you to quickly detach the sling. This one's made by BCM. And then you're going to get a sling also. So this sling is a... try to remember this one. So much gear I tend to forget. Yeah, this is a London Bridge tactical sling. Lots and lots of good companies out there for slings, guys. But a sling is going to be a must, and I recommend a padded one. And then for an optic, I'm a big fan of the SIG red dot. And all it is a simple red dot reticle. And that just makes aiming easier. I think people argue to learn on irons. The truth is most rifles don't even come with irons these days. Get a red dot, zero it, and then learn on the red dot. Again, the irons are a fantastic backup, and maybe you already know how to use irons, but if you don't, then just go with the red dot, go with the modern optic, guys. You're not really going to hurt yourself. Again, this is for beginners and people starting off, and putting a red dot on target is a lot easier than trying to work out iron sights. So that's it. That is the basic AR setup that I recommend. Very, very simple and easy. As I said, let's go over a different rifle and we'll go do some drills. But before we do, let's go over what I recommend for a pistol. Okay, so what do I recommend for a pistol? This one's clear. So I recommend the Glock 19. I think the Glock 19 is a fantastic dual pistol. It's proven, it works. Militaries and law enforcement around the world have been using them. So you've got your Glock 19, now what? If you're ready, I recommend upgrading the sights to Trijicon Tritium sights and getting the Surefire X300 Lite. There are many, many light brands out there. I trust Surefire. It's expensive, but again, you get what you pay for. And if you're going to buy these only products, guys, the rifle, the pistol, get the good equipment, invest in it, don't cheap out. So that's what I recommend for a pistol. No upgrades beyond that, just the iron sights and the red dot. If you're ready, you can upgrade to a red dot on your pistol. For Glock, this is called the MOS modification. So if you're shopping and you see MOS, it means that the slide is cut to take an optic. I recommend getting that optic version. The reason is that you could get good with irons, learn the pistol. After a year or two, you might want a red dot, and then you've already got it optic ready. You don't need to go out and buy another pistol, which could cost you as much as the red dot anyway. I recommend the Trijicon RMR. So that's it, guys. That's the pistol. With that, let's go do some of my favorite drills to get started. Okay, so before we get started shooting, the first thing that we're going to do is we're always going to confirm our zero. What this means is we're making sure that our weapon is firing where it's meant to. Nothing more stressful than you shooting and then halfway through the day you're like, why aren't I shooting well? And then you actually concentrate on doing 5 well-placed shots, and only to find that your rifle moved 0. How can our rifle move 0? Temperature, air density is a huge thing, but honestly, most of the times we haven't got it zeroed in the first place, or our optic has moved because, you know, we're transporting it and all that. So first thing to, you know, kind of prevent a stressful day is going to be we want to confirm our zero, and I like to do that with 3 groups of 5, so 5 rounds 3 times onto a zeroing target at about 25 to 100 meters depending on where your zero is. So once that's done, we can then get shooting into the drills. So before we get starting shooting, or some more notes, is going to be make sure that we're focusing on accuracy over speed. Again, it's going to be very, very tempting to try to be very fast like the video games and the guys you see online. But the key here is to be accurate over being quick. When we get quick, we just get scruffy. So really focus on your accuracy, on your fundamentals of shooting, and that's really what we're aiming for today is, again, make sure that we're going for accuracy, because the last thing we want is to have to use these skills one day and we're sending rounds everywhere, we think we're good when we're actually not. So really focus on accuracy, and that's the reason we're shooting paper today, is we can see where those rounds are going as opposed to steel. Might be fun, might sound cool, but the truth is it's very hard to tell where on the steel we're shooting, especially after that initial paint gets shot off. So don't go out there and buy steel because everyone's shooting steel online and they make lots of tings and it sounds cool. Practice on the paper, paper's fine, guys. If you want more of a challenge, just stretch out to 100 meters, 200 further away, but I recommend 25 and in. So with that, let's get started into some of the basic drills. So let's talk a little bit about how you stand. So there's 2 main methods. The first one is you're going to want to come to almost like what we call an athletic stance. So the first one is you can do what's called squaring up, and this is often used with body armor. So you're squaring up to the target, a little bit bending your knees. Again, bring that weapon to your eye, not your eye to the weapon, like so. If you want, you can widen your stance here, but again, leaning into the weapon, being really aggressive with it. You're not using this hand, you're actually using your shoulder, your skeletal structure, leaning in to use the weapon. All this hand is doing is pressing that trigger. The reason that's so important is because when we add movement, if our hand is kinked in any sort of way or applying pressure, it's going to change how we press that trigger, which is ultimately going to affect where this barrel and where these sights are when that trigger fires. So I'm a big fan of using your skeletal structure, your core when you're aiming, and then just using that trigger finger to press and actuate that trigger. On the note of stances, let's talk about our situational awareness. So a lot of guys have the temptation to close one eye, look down their sights, and that's going to leave you tunnel visioned. When you're using a red dot, we can use what's called the blinded aiming concept, which comes from the designer of the ACOG sight. And that is when we leave both eyes open, and your brain is naturally going to focus on that dot. By leaving both eyes open, it allows us to maximize situational awareness, which is ultimately what we want, and the big difference between our bench shooting and then transitioning to tactical shooting. How bright should your reticle be? So before we get shooting, we want to make sure that that reticle is so dim we can just see it over our target. You don't want this really bright reticle, because what happens is the reticle shines and we get fuzz around it, and our eyes are going to see the red, which are actually going to be the outer limits. We're going to become less accurate. Remember guys, we're placing the reticle over the target to shoot. So we're going to place it on the target, we're going to get it as dim as possible just so we can see it. After that, we're going to focus on our sling. So our sling, a lot of them have this quick tighten feature. I can tighten the sling and I can loosen the sling. So how tight do we want it? When it's super loose like this, guys, it gives us no rigidity or support, but we can use this sling to our advantage. So I like the padded bit around my neck. I then pull to tighten the sling, and I like it just tight enough that I take my elbow around the weapon, I come in, and I'm putting pressure onto the sling. So what happens is, as I come up, this is actually tightening, and the rifle is supporting itself, and the tension on this sling is actually pulling in and providing some extra stability. So I like it just tight enough to do that, and when I bring my elbow down, it comes in. I know a lot of sport guys like to have their elbow out like this, but guys, I'm a big fan of using that sling to your advantage. And then coming down. Again, that's going to still leave it loose enough that it can hang here, but then when we come up and bring that elbow down, that sling's going to tighten in on us, giving us a really stable shooting position. When it comes to this, I'm a big fan of, because again, we're off the bench, we don't have that bench support. I'm a big fan of coming in, pulling that rifle towards me to the point that I can actuate the rifle just like this. I've got my pocket on my shoulder, I'm coming in, nice and high on the trigger, my nose just touching the charging handle, and that's going to ensure that my sight picture is the same every single time, which is going to increase accuracy. So guys, if you do that stuff every single time, it's really going to help. And again, it's that difference between getting a good posture, good trigger control, good sight picture, opposed to a bench. When we've got a bench and we're leaning the magazine up against stuff, it's really easy to forget these things. But when we're just relying on our body, we want to make sure that everything's the same, and that's where that sling can really come into handy. So for our first drill, it's going to be very simple. It's simply going to be called an up drill. So what this means is we're starting with the rifle at what's called low ready. Now low ready is defined by having the firearm pointing at your target's feet. So depending on the distance, we're at 100 today, so it's going to appear very high, but you've got the rifle pointing at your target's feet. And then we're bringing that point of aim, which is going to be our center mass, into our reticle. And all we're doing is we're coming from that ready position, we're coming up and flipping the weapon onto fire. And I just find this is a great start drill, just to kind of get into the rhythm of stuff, practice your breathing. But we're starting with the rifle down and empty, and we're coming off, on. And again, it's just practicing that manipulation of the firearm. Okay, so now that we're ready to start shooting, I'm going to insert a magazine and we're going to do 5 rounds of that up drill. So nice and simple, bring that weapon on target. What you'll notice is I'm bringing the firearm to my face. I'm not bringing my face to the weapon. I'm standing straight up and I'm bringing the firearm to my face. So starting low ready. Coming up, safety off, fire, safety on, and down. Magazine out. And that's it. So that's your first drill. You're going to do that 5 times. And that's going to kind of just get that warm up and start that pace of the day. So after our up drill is going to be simply the same concept, but we're doing 2 to the chest and 1 to the head. So this is what we call failure to stop, and all we're doing is we're getting that rifle ready, and this is kind of simulating, hey, someone's coming at us. We're gonna start low, so let's put this back. Keeping the dust cover closed is a habit, so now what we're doing is we're starting again low. We're doing 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 5 times. Coming up, checking our side picture. Safety on. When we come down, we're actively looking around. We're not getting tunnel vision in those sights. So now that we've done a little bit of shooting, we're now going to get to some drills. You guys can kind of come up with what you want to do. There's plenty of suggestions to do in terms of shooting out there, but some of my favorite drills are first of all going to be the humble reload. So what I like to do is operate in what's called the box. So we've got our box, the sling's going to be a little bit looser. We're firing, click. We're going to come just underneath our armpit here. What this is going to do is it's going to secure the weapon, and we're going to bring that magazine into our box, slightly tilting that firearm towards us. I'm going to grab our new magazine either off of our belt or the bench, insert the new magazine with force. Using our thumb, we're hitting the bolt catch, and dust cover, again closed for me, that's a habit. Closing that dust cover, and then we're coming up and we're re-engaging the target. So we'll eject that round. Coming here, grabbing a new magazine, inserting, bolt catch, and re-engaging. Now, the key to this is again, going slow, don't rush it. I know you want to be like the video games and the guys on TV, but do not rush it, guys. Just go through the motion slowly, again and again and again. Repetition's key. So if you're at the range doing this with live rounds, be careful. If you're at home, use dummy rounds, or honestly I suggest no ammunition at all if you're at home. But again, just taking your time doing that. Okay, so when it comes to practicing reloads, there's two ways we can do it. The first one is we can start with 1 round in the magazine, or the other way is we can insert any magazine with rounds in it or not, but start with the bolt closed. So what this is going to do, there's no round in the chamber right now. When we click fire, it's going to click. We have a magazine in the gun, we drop the magazine. The other method is, of course, we insert a 1 round, and then we're only firing that 1 round, and we have an empty magazine in the gun from that point. So again, with the reload, what we're doing is we're looking to fire 1 round on target and then another round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and insert a magazine with 1 round, weapon on safe, and I've got a magazine on my war belt here, and we're going to fire this 1 round on the target just as we practiced before, and then do a magazine change. So coming up on target, dot, fire, dropping the magazine, coming up to my box, inserting the magazine, bolt catch, and then ready to fire. Weapon on safe. And now what we can do is there's 1 round in the chamber, the weapon is on safe. I can pick up my empty magazine and I can insert this. And now I can begin the drill again. Putting that back into my war belt. Firing. In, bolt catch, weapon on safe. So guys, with this reload drill, we can do it as many times as we want. Again, 1 round in the mag or 1 in the chamber, and we're just switching it out. So yeah, that's another drill we can do. So once you got some reloads down, 2 more of my favorite drills is utilizing dummy rounds, and that's going to be our clearance drills. So let's talk about those. Okay, so when it comes to our clearance drills, there's 2 ways we can do it. We can use our dummy rounds, or we can put, again, no ammo in the magazine, or we can use a piece of spent brass. But the first way we're going to do it is we're simply going to grab our dummy round. We're going to insert that into the magazine below a live round. So what this means is that we're going to fire the live round, and then the next round is going to be a dud. What's fun is if you're training with some mates, you can actually take each other's magazines while you're loading, and you can insert dummy rounds throughout the day into your training. So what we're going to do is to practice a clearance drill. So our first clearance drill is going to be called what's called a tap rack. That is when we are going to tap the magazine, and then we are going to rack the weapon. That's going to eject that spent casing, and we're going to visually inspect and see what that's going on. If we have to, we can lock it to the rear also. So we're going to tap the magazine and rack. That is going to ensure the magazine is seated and a new round is chambered. If that doesn't fix the problem, we are then going to eject the magazine, visually inspect, and see what's going on. So let's do a tap rack drill and see if that fixes the problem. I have my dub magazine. I'm going to insert and load the weapon, and let's see what happens. Click. Nothing. I'm going to tap and rack. That ejects around. I'm going to visually inspect. There's nothing in the magazine, so I'm going to take my magazine out and insert a new magazine. Now we've got 1 round, the dummy, and then we got stack 2. So we're going to go ahead and do a drill with that. We've got 1 in the chamber. Again, same as before, nice and easy. Click, tap, rack, eject that round, re-engage, and then we go right into our reload drill. safety on. So I wanted to demonstrate that because you can mix up these drills and kind of have fun with it. But again, make sure that you know what you're doing originally, you know, with that original aspect of tap rack or the magazine change, and then you can combine the two into what you just saw. So with that, let's go ahead and see what a misfeed or a stovepipe looks like and how to fix that. Okay, so when setting up a stovepipe, we're going to be a little bit more deliberate. What we're going to do is we're going to grab an empty casing. We are then going to put pressure on our bolt. Okay, we're going to put this in sideways, and then we are going to close that bolt, locking in our charging handle, and you can see that. So now what we're going to do, get a magazine with 2 rounds, and we are going to simply come up, weapon on fire, click, nothing happens. We can't put it on safe, we're going to roll over, tap, rack, and then the round's going to clear, and then we can re-engage. Into a magazine change, like so. Okay, so to simulate double feed, we've got around about 3 rounds in our magazine and 1 spare. We're going to have our bolt locked to the rear to set this one up. We're going to insert our magazine. We are then going to insert a round into the chamber, but we're just going to let it sit in there like so. See that? So now what we're going to do is we're going to come up, bring the bolt back, and then we get this condition. We're going to then click in our charging handle. So this is called double feed. This is going to happen when your weapon's jammed up. So again, we're going to ignore, forget that, it didn't even happen. Okay, we're on target, we're coming up, bang, click, nothing. Weapon on safe, go over, we see I have a stovepipe, we're going to tap, rack, and this is where we get into trouble, is look, nothing's happening. So what are we going to do? We're going to lock our bolt to the rear, we're going to eject that magazine, those rounds are going to come out. If they don't, we can shake them out, use our fingers, and try to get that out. Once that's out, we can get our magazine, reinsert it, back on target, and engage. Alright, so one thing that I keep talking about is the war belt or the belt kit. So this is going to be one of those bits of kit that when you transition from bench shooting, when you've got your ammo boxes and your range bag, you're going to need something to kind of help you be more dynamic, and that's when the range belt comes in. So what do I have on here? So it's basically a belt with molly. I can carry my pistol and rifle magazines, medical kit, extras, and my shooting gloves, as long as my pistol holster, and of course hydration and water, because as you guys know, I love to talk about hydration is hugely important. So that's the war belt. You can set them up many ways, and honestly it's a really fun item to collect because it's different to the firearm and you can kind of customize it to be exactly how you want. Alright, so there you have it. That is an introduction of some drills, what you can do at the range to get off of the bench and start tactical shooting. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you're brand new to this, hopefully that gave you some ideas, and if you're experienced, hopefully that was a reminder of just some drills we can go back to start with the basics again. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. As always, look after your mates, look after each other. And for closing thoughts today, life's short, so make sure that you look after each other and tell those that you love them. Alright, so I know some of you guys want to see the targets, so this was just plinking while I was shooting the video. Again, you know, aiming, but more going for the footage. And then these are, I think, they're like 65 or 50% size torsos. But there you go. And over here, this one a little bit worse, but honestly, I wasn't even expecting to hit Baber today. I kind of came out plinking, shoot a video for you guys, so I'm happy with that. Happy days. Have fun, be safe, and I'll see you guys on the range.